Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
All you motherfuckers are gonna pay. You are the ones who are the ball lickers. We're gonna fuck your mothers while you watch and cry like little whiny bitches. We're gonna make them eat our shit, then shit out our shit, and then eat their shit that's made up of our shit that we made them eat. And then all you motherfuckers are next. Love, Jane, Silent Bob.
You know, if we had a time machine, we could have Old Smith and New Smith and make them fight.
That's true. We could. That's what this podcast is building up to.
Oh, 100%.
Let them fight.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, welcome, folks, to Old Smith, New Smith.
I genuinely don't know who to give the edge in that fight. Is it Old Smith or is it New Smith?
Oh, that's true. They both have.
Strengths and weaknesses. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool fighting.
New Smith is a little, little bit healthier. But Old Smith's got the size and
younger.
the youth. Yeah.
It's the same, honestly, with old Keanu versus new Keanu or young Keanu, which is like old Keanu knows how to fight a lot more than like Bill and Ted Keanu, right?
That's true. Yeah. I'd actually give old Keanu new Keanu the edge against Bill and Ted and even Point Break Keanu.
Yeah, I think so too. He'd fucking murder him with a book.
It's Krav Maga shit.
This is a podcast, folks.
Johnny Utah wouldn't know what was happening.
No. Well, in more than ways than one. He'd be like, is that me from the future?
Wait, what?
Why is he so mad at me?
Is he part of the Surfers?
Yeah. Remember Hardball?
I do. I haven't seen it.
Neither have I. We should watch Hardball.
I know.
Came out on 9/11.
I know one of the kids dies.
Oh, no.
Yep.
Spoilers for Hardball,
Spoilers
folks.
for Hardball. I'm not telling you which one because I don't know, but I did hear that one of the kids dies in that movie.
Like in the movie?
Yeah, it's part of the plot. So it's like
Eaten by an eagle?
Double whammy. It comes out on 9/11 and one of the kids dies.
Technically, it came out September 14th, for the record.
Fair.
But,
fair.
That's honestly worse.
Yeah.
Because on 9/11, it's like, oh, we didn't know. On September 14th, it's like, we had a moment to veer away.
We could have thought about this, yeah.
But we didn't have that much time either. Like, the marketing was done.
It's already finished, yeah. It's coming out.
The premiere had happened, yeah.
It's coming out, baby.
It was sent to theaters probably at that point.
I know I've said this before, but the No Use for a Name live album came out on 9/11.
Nice. Yeah, didn't like not a Linkin Park. I feel like there's an album.
There was a number of albums that came because 9/11 was a Tuesday, and traditionally Tuesday is when new releases like movies, CDs, and stuff hit stores. For whatever reason, it's usually Tuesday.
Right. Welcome to 9/11 Cast, which
9/11
is kind of all our
Cast.
podcast. No, okay, listen, folks. First of all, big thank you to @NerdNumbers. Sorry we began this with 9/11 talk.
I'm not. You probably expected us to.
That's fair. @NerdNumbers gave us a task, and that is to watch Kevin Smith films in a specific order, which is from the outside in, where we started on his older films and his newest films, and we worked our way to the middle. You know, like you eat corn on the cob, right? You start at one end, and then you start at the other end, and you work your way to the middle.
Sure, if that's how you
that
eat corn on the
normal
cob.
thing everybody does, the normal way. And so we are comparing and contrasting those films, which I guess means something. We're comparing Kevin Smith's older work to his newer work.
There's been if you've been listening, you probably have noticed this as well, that there's been a surprising amount of synergy and connections between the two films that
100%
we've been pairing together, even if it doesn't seem like there would be.
Right, and I'd say what I like about this formula is it's the dynamic changes, which is that at first it's like, let's compare this young director to this older director. Now when we're meeting in the middle, it's more about how like that general time in his life, the mid-career. And I want to say it's not necessarily his mid-career. For the record, Kevin Smith, if you're watching this, watching with your ears, don't be like, what do you know that I don't? Is this going to end with you like fucking, being a Mark David Chapman on my ass? And the answer is no. This
Probably
could be
not.
probably not. Yeah, it's a 90% chance we won't. And so the point being that, we might continue this podcast a little bit. There's been talk of us covering Clerks 3 in the future, for example. The point is that this is the game we're playing, and it's fun. And it's interesting. And I think, the dynamic plays as we go through the timeline in this unique way.
Yeah.
And so today we're at the movie Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back from 2001.
I was about to say, speaking of 9/11, this came out, I think, a month before 9/11.
Oh,
I think it came out in August. I think it came out in August.
Well, then we were completely on theme, weren't we?
Yeah.
With our 9/11
It's related.
talk. You didn't think we were. Yeah, we're going to be later pairing this up with the 2010 film Cop Out, and that'll be interesting.
I have not seen Cop Out in 15 years, so.
Yeah, I saw it once. It was fine. I mean, we'll talk about it. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
We'll talk about it on the Cop Out episode, but.
Yeah, I understand why, that and Jersey Girl, where it's there's a certain. He didn't seem to consider that his strongest films. That was when he had kind of hit past the studio stuff or past the Askew stuff and was trying to just make studio films.
Right. We'll get to that, but I think on the Cop Out episode, but I believe Cop Out's the first movie he directed that he didn't write, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, interesting.
I think that's true.
Yeah, and I guess when we talk about how they compare, there's a dynamic there I want to talk about with this studio film, because what this is, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, I'm sure you remember this at the time. This was seen as the final View Askew film.
This was the swan song for View Askew, yeah. And it even ends in the end credits with Jay and Silent Bob have left the building.
Exactly. And it's supposed to be, and it wasn't, because much like, he's basing this off of comic book worlds, and much like comic book movies, there's never an end, and there was never an end in here, so it was very fitting. But at the time, this was big. This was a big film, big for Kevin Smith.
As big as he had done ever, yeah.
Yeah, because it was this is it, folks. We're doing it. To the point that they had to, I had the DVD of this. They had to turn people away for cameos, and in fact, cut a cameo with Adam Carolla, to which I say, good idea.
Good work. Maybe they should have gone a little bit further and removed some of these other cameos, but yeah.
Yeah.
At least we dodged that bullet.
Yeah, we dodged the Adam Carolla bullet. Are there other problematic cameos in this?
Jason Biggs and James Vanderbeek are both kind of
they both suck now?
They think they're both avowed scumbags, right?
Oh no, I didn't know that about either of them.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. I can,
Yeah. I think
they haven't been around in a while.
I think that's true.
I assumed, so Vanderbeek, this is off subject, but Vanderbeek was really good in Rules of Attraction. Mm-hmm. And I had kind of in the back of my mind assumed he must be a nightmare, right? Because he's not in anything. So it's he seemed to have talent, but he's not in anything. Therefore, and I know this hasn't stopped other people, but I assumed he was a nightmare on set or something like that. But I don't know.
Yeah.
This isn't Beatcast, This isn't Vandercast.
Yeah.
James Vandercast.
Dawson cast.
Yeah. So that's all to say. This movie is more of a victory lap, right?
Yes.
Than a movie.
This is a celebration of Kevin Smith's career. Basically, it's kind of what we talked about with Jay and Silent Bob reboot. We talked about that dynamic a little bit and how it was weird to replicate it in that movie because it was 20 years removed from a victory lap, and he hadn't done too many View Askew movies in between now and then. But this, conversely, was such a big deal for Kevin Smith fans and for people who had been following his career in the '90s, and just it had he's always kind of flown under the radar. But I feel this one and Dogma right before it, Dogma got a lot of attention for being controversial. But I feel this was the most attention a movie of his ever got.
Yes, it was. I worked at a movie theater during when this came out. The managers let me reserve. You couldn't do this. You couldn't actually do this, but I reserved an entire row for this movie so my friends could come see it and stuff like that. Like it was big at the time.
It was a big deal, yeah.
Like, again. And so like you forget where it's like you see the Quick Stop in this, and it's like that was the first time we really saw the Quick Stop. I mean, we saw him chasing Amy briefly, but like things like that where it's like a lot of these characters, the Clerks characters coming
first
back.
First time in color, you mean?
Yeah. But you know what I mean, where it's like
we hadn't seen Dante and Randall since Clerks, and it was, Yeah.
And so it was like, it was a lot more like special because now we've done 3 Clerks and stuff like that. And so it felt like it was like, oh, this is it. This is the end of it. This
hit me particularly well, timing wise, because, like you and like probably a lot of people listening to the show, big Kevin Smith fan all through middle school and high school. And I graduated in 2001. So like, and then this movie came out that summer. So I went off to college like probably a week or 2 after I saw this movie. So it felt like the swan song for my youth as well. In terms like high school, I was like, okay, it's like taking a bow. Like I felt like it was taking a bow too. It's like, okay, I'm moving on from high school. I'm moving on from at least this stage of the Kevin Smith stuff. And we're both gonna, I was riding that same vibe of being like, okay, I'm closing one chapter and beginning an exciting new one that I have no idea where it's going to take me. And you get a lot of that vibe from this movie. Like you can feel that excitement and joy from him and from most of the people involved, where it's like, yeah, it's bittersweet that this is done, even though it wasn't. But it was like such a cool thing to be like, man, what is he going to do next? Like what is the rest of his career going to be like? And I was riding that same wave. So like I really, this movie was really important to me weirdly during that summer.
It was big at the time.
Yeah.
And it's overall a fun movie. I
think it still mostly holds up. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the question of whether or not it holds up is complicated to me, because I think if you don't really know Kevin Smith films, it doesn't, because something about this movie, and this is not a critique, it is structurally unbalanced. And what I mean by that...
it's bonkers. The pace of this movie is bonkers.
As a movie, things like Will Ferrell's character, who is the foil, only shows up halfway through the movie. That's the actual inciting incident. But, I mean, technically it's not, because... Well,
technically it's when they get the cops called on them in front of the Quick Stop.
Yeah, and when they want that, I love their motivation. It's just, we have to stop this movie because we hate people on the internet talking about us. But then at the halfway point, which you could argue, point of no return, it makes sense. They're suddenly thrown into this heist, and like that's when actually like the characters who matter actually show up, more or less. And so it's very top heavy with like, well, we have to show Dante and Randall, we have to show Brody, these cameos that like make it unbalanced, but not if you're a fan, right? So it's still like it's not like hard to watch.
We've talked about that too, especially with Reboot, where it's like this is kind of impenetrable if you're not a Kevin Smith fan.
100%. But at the same time, this also has like the parody stoner adventure film vibe, where there's like an element of it of like we're just having fun, so none of it matters,
Right. It's the same. It's a very familiar road trip formula for comedies, like Beavis and Butthead do America, and Dumb and Dumber both do this, where it's 2 buffoons going on the road for an unrelated task, and they get involved in this huge national crime drama.
Right. It also has an element. So again, not a critique, just because this movie isn't trying to be anything more or anything not more different than it is.
Right.
But like if you were to make an accessible version of this, I think the Hollywood stuff is the most accessible, where it becomes a lampooning of Hollywood with the actual people. Like, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are a delight.
Gus Van Sant is my favorite cameo.
Counting his money. Yeah,
Jesus
Christ,
I'm busy.
busy. It's so good. So fucking good.
So action, Gus?
Yeah, so good. That's the strongest in terms of the most accessible humor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's near the end. I also want to take a moment to ask you, Tom, canonically, how does this fit into the Scream universe? because we know Scream 3, they're on a studio lot. Jay and Silent Bob show up in Scream 3 as Jay and Silent Bob.
Don't do
right?
this to me.
I have to.
Okay.
I have to.
Yes, you are correct. They show up as Jay and Silent Bob in Scream 3.
So the implication is that this movie takes place during the plot of Scream 3. However, they're filming Scream in this movie.
Yes.
So
Another solid cameo from Wes Craven and Shannon Doherty.
yes, I think I have the answer. And it's weird. It's still weird. It takes a little bit of finesse.
Okay.
I think Scream 3 doesn't take place in this universe. It was simply being filmed in this universe. So Jay and Silent Bob, they aren't like in the Scream 3 universe. The Jay and Silent Bob from this walked into them filming a different Scream. Or the Shannon Doherty monkey stuff was cut from the making of Scream 3. Get what I'm saying?
I see
and that's
what
why
you're saying.
Courtney Cox flips them off, because they're not supposed to actually be in the shot. So in this universe, they shot this scene for Scream 3 where these random people walked in. She flipped them off, and then Wes Craven was like, you know what? That's fine. That makes sense, right?
Sure.
It's and they would call her like Gail Weathers, and like they, you know, they refer to Gail Weathers, but it's
Yes.
like, you know, maybe they're just joking. That's the most sense you can make it, and it's not that bad. It just means that the Scream movies are filmed in the Jay and Silent Bob universe,
Right.
and
I'm glad.
Scream 3
Okay.
was originally going to have a monkey in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they test really well. People love monkeys.
Yeah. We love this monkey. It's funny. It's funny bullshit.
So, yeah. I think a lot of this, even this movie is not nearly as impenetrable as Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, because a lot
Yes.
of it, you know, cameos aside, a lot of it is just jokes. Like, you don't have
Yeah.
to know who Jay and Silent Bob are really.
Well, that was, yeah.
It's just like, this movie is just gags.
Yes, it's again, it's just a stoner comedy. There's some interesting dynamics to it, but yeah, I'd say the reboot is not accessible at all. Like you said,
It is impenetrable. Yeah.
and it recycles way too much.
It does,
Like it's
yeah.
referencing this movie, which is referencing other things. So it's
Yeah.
like references of references. And we already covered that.
We did.
This is more of like more like we're gonna throw out original jokes. We're gonna start like I forgot movies. This is the first time they're, I think, in a movies, right?
This
like
is the
in
first
Dogma,
time
they're outside of a.
They're
movies,
outside of the movies. Yeah.
and there's tons of references like that. But I think if as a stoner comedy, you're just getting high watching this. If you've never seen anything else, you're gonna enjoy it for what it is. There's a lot of dumb jokes throughout. You know.
Yeah, it's just wall-to-wall gags. Like, the jokes per minute, and not all
Yeah.
of them land, but like the jokes per minute in this film is astonishing. Like,
Yeah. They just they
it
don't
crams
stop.
them in there.
Yeah, and I think this was the best way to do this, because the other thing about this movie that I think we forget.
I want to pause real quick. That's part of why it feels like such a joyful celebration victory lap, because he's not even trying to, like, because his other movies are about stuff. Like, there's
Right.
character arcs and there's drama and stuff, and there's, you know, character arcs and some, I guess, drama in this, but it's really just like, I don't want to do any of that. Let's just have fun. Like, this movie is just gags. So
Their arc is they want to beat up these people on the internet, and at
And
the end they
they
just go
do.
door to door doing it. They get what they want. No, I was going to say the thing that makes this weird and why it's a good decision to do the thing he did, which is that the other aspect of this is that Jay and Silent Bob never supposed to be main characters. They
Nope.
weren't designed for that. And so the question, how do
Those
you
are-
make a movie...
those are real comments, pretty much. Like, he's paraphrasing, but those are real comments he got when this movie was announced.
Oh, yeah. The Magnolia fan is an Easter egg. I know that because he had some sort of fight with like Paul Thomas
PTA?
Anderson.
Oh, no.
Yeah, there was something like that. I know Magnolia fight was a reference to
Magnolia fan, yeah.
Yeah, because Kevin Smith has always famously not been afraid of just saying things. Like if he thinks a movie sucked, he would just say it. And it's like when you're in the industry, it's complicated. It gets complicated
Right,
to say shit like
you're
that.
jeopardizing potential future working relationships when you
Right.
do that.
And I know there was tension between him and J-Lo because J-Lo didn't like how candid Kevin Smith always was, you know? And it's like, so because Ben Affleck was is his friend.
Yeah.
So it was just like this, like there's a leak, you know.
Yeah.
Like she had a very protected image, which is fine, you know. And I think so
Right,
did Ben
and
Affleck.
and
So
she's
I know
like-
there was some.
She's like extreme entertainment royalty too, because not
Yeah,
just
exactly.
in film, like in music. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I could see that not like kind of being weird to her. Sure.
Yeah, Kevin Smith is this is a weird comparison. It's like Trump, where you're like, man, that guy's not going to keep any secrets, and as we're learning, he didn't. Where it's like Smith is just spinning it fast and loose. He doesn't. He's not interested in that shit, you know.
Yeah.
And so it makes him very entertaining for that reason, where he's just fucking spilling the tea
and
every
he's
which way.
Yeah, and he's always just, for the most part, you know, with the exception of Cop Out and Jersey Girl, he's made his movies himself.
Yeah, he's always on the fringes.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
So
you
it's
know,
like he has the career where it's like, well, I can say I didn't like Magnolia and it's probably not going to hurt
Yep.
me.
and he has the cred because he caused Good Will Hunting to exist, and gave Miramax a lot of success. And of course, he's tied up with some bad people for that reason, or just the one bad person mainly.
Both of the brothers were pretty bad, but
They're both bad, yeah.
Primarily Harvey. It's the other
But
one was
the
covering
point
it
being
up.
that
Anyway.
this was like height of Miramax,
Yeah.
where it's like Kevin Smith, weirdly enough, because he was the producer of Good Will Hunting and like got that fucking thing into Miramax, he was kind of like, they kind of owed him because that boosted Miramax
it's a
and that
joke
boosted,
in
of course,
the
several
movie.
careers. Yeah, then you got to do the front.
You got to do the one
payback
picture
because
because your friend says you owe him, and they both look right in the camera.
yeah,
Affleck and Damon. Yeah,
very silly bullshit.
yeah. It's just silly. I like them. I do like movies that are unabashedly silly, like when they pull it off, when it's actually funny.
Well, it's justified because again,
Yeah.
going back to what's the best way to make a movie celebrating this universe? Well, you make it star the only constant in that universe. Jay and Silent Bob were there throughout.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like making a C-3PO and R2-D2 film, right? Where it's like, okay, they know everybody. And then it's like, okay, what kind of movie you make with them? You make a stoner film. And a stoner film's Harold and Kumar, Cheech and Chong, they're actually kind of a series of vignettes, aren't they? Where it's like they're
That's why
always
they're-
bouncing from thing to thing.
It's usually a road trip because it's an easy formula for that. Because
Yep.
it is essentially just a bunch of sketches.
Yeah, and that it when you're a stoner drug dealer, that is what you do. You go from thing to thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know a lot of people, and so like that's a common. So that's why this works so well because they're able to insert all these cameos naturally in the structure of this style of film.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of perfect
Yeah.
for that.
I do want to say another one of my. I did say Gus Van Sant's my favorite cameo. My other favorite cameo is Tracy Morgan.
I was about to say Pumpkin Escobar.
Pumpkin Escobar because the
Crack. Want some crack?
the delivery of "Give me the map, Scott. Give me the map, Scott."
The one that gets me is the
Immediately
first
gets
line.
mad.
Yeah, the first line, crack, want some crack, get you high. And he like puts his hands up like, ooh. So it's very entertaining.
Yeah, he's really funny.
Yeah, this also has Jon Stewart. I think, you know what my favorite has to be by default? William B. Davis is in this, otherwise known as the cigarette smoking man. Yeah, he's in the Planet of the Apes fantasy, which I wanted to single out because, another thing about this movie is if you've read the comics, it's pulling a lot from the Jay and Silent Bob comics.
Oh, I haven't, so I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot. They steal a monkey in that. The Jay and Silent Bob comics, interesting enough, take place technically between Mallrats and Dogma. It ends at the beginning of Dogma.
You mentioned that on the Dogma episode I'm remembering now.
Yeah, but in that adventure, they do stuff like they steal a monkey, they go on a road trip. He has this Planet of the Apes fantasy in it, which is why he accused Tim Burton of stealing. Because in Jay's original Planet of the Apes fantasy in the comic, there's a shot of the Lincoln Memorial as a monkey. Mm-hmm. And then it showed up in the actual Planet of the Apes movie, which is very funny.
Yeah, I could. I know in the novel Planet of the Apes, that's kind of how it ends, except the character is in front of the Eiffel Tower and he sees a truck driver that's an ape.
Okay.
So they're still. It was still the idea of a landmark being a national monument or a landmark being it. But
For sure,
kind of
yeah.
moved it over to an American landmark. But it is
it's
very
still funny.
very telling, or not very telling.
Oh
but
yeah.
It's very coincidental that it's the same, exact same one. God, that's a funny ending. Just
it is.
Mark Wahlberg looking up in stricken horror at Ape Lincoln.
And then he gets arrested. That's also funny.
Mm-hmm.
Something about a sci-fi movie where at the end you just get arrested. Like he's just going to be in ape jail.
Yeah, he's going to be in monkey
They're just going
jail.
to process him. Yeah. That's
Or they'll
some
just
silly shit.
flush him down the toilet or something because they think he's a bug.
Right.
It's like, well, what is this guy? Anyway, back to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Also in the comic, they get chased by Walt Flanagan's dog in the comic. And if you remember in Mallrats, he says, man, that guy's faster than Walt Flanagan's dog.
I do remember that.
Yeah, it's all cinematic universe. But
Well, I see. I always thought, because Walt Flanagan's a real guy and it's one of his friends,
Yeah.
I always thought that was just an inside joke with the friends.
it might have been because I think the comic actually came after Mallrats. So they
I
added
believe
that
so,
in
yeah.
to reference the line. So it all comes together. But I wanted to point out the Planet of the Apes fantasy because I wanted to talk about a very specific Kevin Smith style, which is that, and it goes into the parody. It's a fading style. It's a style that we don't get any much. I think Seth MacFarlane does it, which is the parody style, which is that they shot a huge sequence for that. There's like a ape town. They do the effects shot from the ending of Planet of the Apes.
Mm-hmm. They do the scene where
monkeys.
he catches like Randall and Dante in a net.
Yeah. And they're in costume. They look like
And it's mimicking the shots from Planet of the Apes. Yeah, it's like it's very. The Simpsons used to do this a lot in the '90s, where they would the joke was just that they were just mimicking the movie that they were referencing exactly.
Yeah. So along with this being filled with cameos, I love that they spare no expense for like the bits because that's a 30-second bit. You know, that's huge. And they keep doing that, and he goes just all out. So like, again, it's part of the parody stoner movie stuff, which is like you need to be over the top to some extent.
Yeah.
And they do that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about in context of like comparing it, but I feel like in terms of talking about the movie itself, like we can kind of just call out our favorite little bits, right?
Yeah, I've called it
unless you have something to say about the overall movie. You know, I'm not going to go through the plot.
No, it's like I said, it mostly holds up. There's dated stuff in it, obviously. It's a comedy from 2001, so there's...
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Smith has always been very front and center about the gay stuff, where he's had a lot of back and forth about that. And like it's almost ironically in this, but it's also still
there.
You know, it's hard to ironically do it.
Yeah. But yeah, one of my favorite bits is Morris Day and the Time. It's just that running joke, and then it ends with a concert.
Right, which you get very stoner movie. It
Yeah.
reminds me of something like PCU, where it's like we're just having fun. What's her name? Shannon Elizabeth?
Shannon Elizabeth, yeah, she was the...
Her fall in that sequence is amazing. I just want to point that out. Where she has the leg cuffs on. She like whiplash falls, and it's like, oh, God. It's just a good fall.
Yeah, and then in that scene where Will Ferrell's like, don't make me shoot you, Justice.
Yeah. Will Ferrell's filing
Will Ferrell's
on
great.
all
This is one of his...
Yeah.
This is one of Will Ferrell's first movies.
Yeah, and he's bringing it in a way where it's like he's bringing a flavor of comedy into this that's both very Kevin Smith but also not.
Right, it's still his brand, but he's adjusting it to fit in with the Kevin Smith sort of style.
Right. Yeah. Judd Nelson's there.
Yeah, Judd Nelson
At the
is
Star
great.
Trek rocks.
Yep.
Oh God! In terms of like, I also have to shout out to Chris Rock because I love that Chris Rock's entire thing is that he just hates white people.
Yeah,
That's
and
it.
then he's ripping into Jamie Kennedy specifically.
You went to film school, didn't you?
Yeah.
And just
to get a
sniffing
black
your
man his
cracker.
coffee.
Yeah.
Oh man, he's
His
so
first
funny
line,
in
look at
this.
all these crackers. Yeah, that's the thing. It's so fucking funny. He's
so
just
good.
so mad
Yeah.
at everybody around him.
All right,
All
let's
these
shoot
white
this
people.
piece of shit. God, he's
shit.
great in this. Oh man.
Got a shout out to the guy holding the steel beam from Mallrats is in this. Did you catch him?
No, I didn't.
He's right at the end when they're walking down the studio. He walks by in the background.
Oh, nice.
He blends in.
That's fun. I didn't notice that, and I've seen this a few times.
Oh, yeah. I told you the other day, I didn't notice that they were going after Pravasic from The Fugitive in this.
Yeah, yep.
That's great.
I love Diedrich Bader's bit is funny as the security guard.
Yep. Yeah. It's I like Sean William Scott
Sean William Scott is great.
singing. There's some good outtakes when the scene where he goes, because I love animals. They have like 5 takes of Jay just losing his fucking mind.
It's such a
Every time
funny...
he goes, because I love.
It's his delivery. He's got the braces and the Prince Valiant wig. It's so fucking good.
This movie, I think a good comparison is something like Super Troopers, right? Where it's so stupid.
Yeah.
Like the clit stuff is so dumb.
It's so
And
dumb that you just have to like kind of, you're like, all right. You just kind of chuckle at it.
Yeah, the acronym of the group is clit.
Yeah.
And they at first they claim they're SAC, but they're actually clit. And then the Jon Stewart part where they're like, the clit is the offshoot of the labia, and he's like, yes, the liberate apes before imprisoning apes. It's just the stupidest fucking joke.
It's really, and they keep it in the air. That's what I like. And they to keep the ball in the air. It's all dumb, but the fact that they keep tacking punchlines on it is really fun.
Yeah,
man,
they don't let up, and that's what makes a joke like that work, right?
Yeah.
Is where you just say, "Oh, you think we're done? We're gonna keep going,
Yeah.
and it's gonna get funny again."
Futurama
every
does
time.
that a lot.
Oh yeah, I got a little Venture Brothers vibe because they do Dark Scooby Doo before Venture Brothers did.
Oh yeah, they do.
I enjoyed
That's right.
that. Right, that was the thing. The Scooby Doo spoof felt very like when they first introduced it, I was like, eh. But then what they do with it, where they just make them a nightmare,
Yeah,
is a good twist.
yeah, where they're
And
just like
Venture
weird.
Brothers, yeah.
And Shaggy
George-
wants to steal their organs.
Yeah. George Carlin in this.
Yep.
When he says,
Sure.
"Don't be so suburban."
Don't be so suburban. If it means I can get where I'm going, I'll take a shot in the mouth.
It's good. It's good.
He's so good, man.
It's great cameo. Carrie Fisher. Of course, Mark Hamill.
Oh yeah, that's a fun bit too, where it just freezes and it says, "Hey kids, Mark Hamill, applause."
I always wondered about that. Like, was he nervous because he had all that shit on him?
Maybe, and I think he was. I mean, he's a huge nerd. He's a huge. I mean, the Death Star thing in the first in Clerks in the first few Askew movies. So I think it was probably a mix of that and also just wanting to really savor the moment of being like, I've got Mark Hamill in my movie. Here he is.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
he's in a lightsaber fight in my movie.
Yeah.
And then of course the great line from Chris Rock when he says George Lucas is going to sue somebody.
Yeah. A couple little moments that I like. I like when Scott Mosier as the AD keeps calling Jay little kid. It's like, all right, well, come here, little kid. Come over here. Like, that just gets me. Because you think about it, Jay, he dresses like a child, like a small child.
He behaves like a child. Like he behaves like a 15-year-old.
Yeah. The line, "What's with the knife? Are we having cake or something?" Always enjoy that. Where they can't, the quick stop arc where they lean against the other wall.
Yeah, and they can't do it.
They can't do it. A lot of little things, a lot of good little things.
Yeah.
Slamming into the fake studio backdrop gets me every time.
So it's Looney Tunes as shit, but I love it.
It's so stupid.
Yep.
Ooh, I want to shout out. I'm just going through my notes now. I want to shout out one moment when the van explodes for like a half a second, maybe a little longer. Jason Mewes acts. He actually acts.
Oh yeah.
Like he looks genuinely upset.
Yeah.
And then it goes into a gag where he screams justice. But just shout out because he I don't think he really tries to act that much, you know what I mean?
Not that much. It's more about he's just memorizing his lines and being himself, because usually he is written as himself more or less.
Yeah, even when he's not playing Jay.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, no, he reacts as though his girlfriend just
good face,
exploded. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, again, for only a second.
Yeah, for about a second, but he does. It's there.
I also have to note, I know there's a reference in this, but the banner, this is congratulations on our 37th heist. I just think it's funny that they made a banner.
Yeah, they went and had it
Like,
made.
that's just a very funny idea that I never think about. It's sketch comedy. There's all these little stupid offers throughout it. Shout out to Officer Rick Darris. That is Rick Darris, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to Randall narking on them, which is ultimate villain Randall.
Yeah, that's some villain shit.
It really is.
Feels a little out of character for Randall. Like, why would he care?
Well, he is kind of a villain, right? Like
it becomes more clear in like Clerks 3, but yeah.
Yeah, even Clerks 2 when he's like talking about dating really underage girls, and they're like, "Oh, they all love me because I have a driver's license."
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right. Randall is a villain.
He's a scumbag.
Yeah, Randall is the villain. He blows up
100%.
Dante's life over and over again.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Generally very fun. Oh, one more scene. There's the most dated scene in my opinion. Do you have a opinion on this?
The most dated scene?
Yep.
I don't know.
The diamond heist. It's very like Agent Cody Banks 2000s. Like the gizmo that they have, but the look of it.
It's what everyone was doing at the time. Like
that's what I mean. It's
he's spoofing films of the time, but yeah, that is the thing that like actually dates it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
it really looks like a shitty 2000 sci-fi action.
And I do appreciate that the keg is that Ali Larder farts and it sets off the alarm.
It's an elaborate fart joke. Yeah.
Just a really drawn out fart joke.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, fun movie. I don't think anybody's going to watch this for the first time after listening to this podcast.
No.
I don't think.
I'm sure not.
Yeah. Also, a montage of them beating children. that badmouths them and other people, but like the first three are children.
Yeah, a bunch of kids.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. I like the gag where they're going to beat up the executive and he holds up a finger and they wait because he's on the phone. Like they wait for him to finish his phone call. Mm-hmm. For a few seconds and then they get tired of it. But yeah, I did like that.
But yeah, just a very fun celebration. And at the end, we have them all coming out of the movie. This is where we get the Banksy retcon thing.
Banky.
Where he's Banky, sorry.
Banksy's a different guy.
Someone else.
Yeah. Although it could be Jason Lee, we don't know.
We actually don't know. That's true. I think some people
know who Banksy is, yeah. I was
at this point,
being facetious.
And we get the return of fucking Joey Lauren Adams. That was a surprise. I remember that being a genuine surprise because we had known if you were a Smith fan, yeah. Yeah, you knew that they had bad fucking blood.
Well, they had dated, and that's what Chasing Amy is about.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And so that's interesting.
Yeah. And she's there with Trish the Dish from Mallrats.
Yep. Alanis Morissette closes the book at the end, which again keeps going. I honestly like that. I remember thinking at first oh, don't make more when Clerks 2 was happening, but then Clerks 2 was good.
Clerks 2 is another movie that's wall-to-wall gags almost. I mean, there's a genuine dramatic arc in it, but there's so many gags in Clerks 2.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it.
Have we not covered Clerks 2 yet?
I don't think we have.
Man,
right? Because that comes after this.
That's right, that comes after this. It'll be that's right. We haven't covered it yet.
I don't know if it's next. I think it's on the list.
No, it'll be Jersey Girl and then Clerks 2, I think.
That's a interesting mix. We'll have to figure it out. I don't know. We're going to go out of order if we want to cover Clerks 3.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
In the future, which I have interesting things to say about that.
Mm-hmm, me too.
But we should talk about how this will compare to Cop Out. Besides the fact that Tracy Morgan's in both.
And Sean William Scott is too.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
He's the cat burglar they used to steal the baseball card that slips and breaks his neck.
Yeah. I think,
but then comes back to life in the end credits.
I remember him being fun in it.
Yeah, he's just a guy they arrest and then try to get him to steal the baseball card back for him. I do remember
Yeah.
that sequence. I remember Adam Brody as one of the detectives too, and he's pretty funny in it, but
Yeah. Aside from like light plot comparisons like crime adventure, I see two big potential similarities.
they're buddy comedies. That's one.
Oh yeah, that's one. I was thinking in terms of tone, but yeah. What else are you thinking?
I remember the tone of Cop Out being surprisingly more Kevin Smith than I was expecting, because it has Bruce Willis in it, and it's like he didn't write it.
Right.
But like, at least I'm pretty sure he didn't. I better double check that. I do remember hearing like it was a big Blacklist script for a while, and it was originally called A Couple of Dicks.
Yes.
Or A Pair of Dicks.
They literally, they say it, they go a couple of dicks in one of the scenes, and it's clear that that's supposed to like smash the credits with that on the screen, but it says Cop Out. I'm sure the studios were like, can we not have the word dick?
That's why he calls it. That's why he called it Cop Out.
Yeah,
because they copped out on the title.
Yeah, it's true. That's one of the first things I want to talk about is the studio film dynamic. I think is interesting, which is that in Jay and Silent Bob, he's like top dog, right? He has all these resources, and he's making the movie he wants to make, and it's ridiculous. Whereas it's the same dynamic in a way. Cop Out is a studio. You have all these resources, only he's not top dog. Famously, he struggled with Bruce Willis. And it's that idea of like, they're both studio film, have that dynamic, but one is very different than the other, right? In terms of, the power dynamic.
There's also, it's not as there. I remember, I didn't like Cop Out when I saw it. And I remember part of what I didn't like about it was it felt like it didn't have, I don't want to say heart or soul, but it felt like it didn't have that element that his other movies had. Like I could tell that Kevin Smith wasn't really invested in the movie.
Right. And what it feels like to me, and I know this isn't completely true, but Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back feels like Kevin Smith is entering the studio system, and Cop Out feels like he's exiting it. Because that is kind of what's happening. He's closing the book on View Askew, and he's going to make movies. And he made Jersey Girl and Cop Out. And then he's like, okay, not for me. I'll go back and start making movies for me again.
Both of those movies got hideous reviews.
Right. And so by covering these two movies in a pair, that's what we're bookending, right? Is that era where he was like, I'm going to try to make movies for the studio more. I think that's
more mainstream movies.
Yeah, exactly. I also think the humor. Do you agree with this idea? I think there's two types of Kevin Smith humor. I think there's the Gen X-y clerk cynical stuff, and I think there's the cartoony, over the top stuff.
Yes,
and they sometimes intersect, but I would say both Cop Out and Jay and Silent Bob are more towards the cartoony stuff than the Gen X cynical dialogue.
Yeah.
Like there's no like long sequences where they're talking about Star Wars.
No, and nobody has those. Well, I mean, Ben Affleck in his one scene does, and well, his scene is Holden rather, but it's a lot lighter on the quote unquote Kevin Smith dialogue, which is the really like wordy, sort of kind of wit. Like it's I've mentioned it before where he often gets criticized for overwriting. But Jay and Silent Bob are kind of the opposite because they don't speak like that. They speak like goofball cartoon characters. So
that's the thing.
Yeah. So this movie is all of those Kevin Smith gags.
Yeah, the thing about I think Kevin Smith's writing that we are learning, like watching Red State and stuff, is that it sometimes feels like he can't control himself, but he can. He just chooses whether or not to do that, depending on the film.
Right.
There's and that's what it is like. This Jay and Silent Bob and Cop Out are probably light on that stuff, and I think it's because he chose to do it that way. Jay and Silent Bob don't have long conversations about movies; they just don't. They don't speak that way. So it's interesting to watch him, treat the characters the way they should. And I think Jay and Silent Bob, and then the characters in Cop Out are going to be that same level of kind of like silliness. Versus
that's what I remember. Like
Yeah.
I remember Bruce Willis drawing a dick on the interrogation room window.
That sounds about right. Yeah,
Like it's that level of
it's childish.
and
yeah.
also he didn't write it. It's the only one of his movies he didn't write. So,
Right.
It'll be interesting to revisit it because I haven't seen it in almost two decades.
Yeah, same here.
Over
I only saw it the
2
one
decades.
time.
It came out in 2010. Holy cow!
Yeah, I don't remember hating it, but I don't remember loving it.
I really didn't like it, but we'll see. I haven't revisited it in a while, so I'm curious to see, and then I'm curious to see what other matchups or synergies we might discover between the two films after watching it.
Yeah, oh, for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's a good excuse to watch it again. That's for sure.
It's going to be kind of depressing because, like I said, I remember feeling the movie like it felt like I could feel that Kevin Smith was like not happy making this movie.
Well, it's very funny because I don't know Kevin Smith, but based off watching the evenings with Kevin Smith, I think every now and then he walks into something that he should see coming, which is that his big story about Bruce Willis when he was on Die Hard was about how much he got along and enjoyed Bruce Willis. Well, Willis literally just tortured the studio and the director. Mm-hmm. And then he was like, well, I'm going to do a movie with Bruce Willis. And it's like, how do you think that's going to go, man? Like, Bruce Willis was fun when you didn't have to direct him. And now you have to direct him. Of course he's a fucking nightmare, right?
He's not going to advocate for you if you're the director.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's what the impression from his stories of Bruce Willis is. It sounds like he's a really fun coworker. Terrible if you work for him or he's working for you.
Yeah.
But a great coworker. That's what it sounded like. And that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was.
It'll be interesting to see if I still feel like that tone is there compared to this movie's. Just, like I said, there's just so much joy in this film. And it's I've done it, closing this book. This chapter's done, moving on to my future. I'm so excited. Like, this movie is full of those vibes.
That's why it's a cool comparison, because I would we'll watch it, but maybe that will be his least joyful film, and I would argue this might be his most joyful film.
It might be, yeah.
Yeah, and well, I mean, I'm sure there's other films he got joy out of. I don't want to act like he'll never get joy out of making a film, but you know what I mean.
I'm just talking like tone and vibe. Yeah, obviously we don't know
exactly.
Yeah.
In terms of like what you're getting out of it, like this was just like we're out of the 90s. We're celebrating the Kevin Smith View Askew verse, and we're doing a big thing with all the comedians. Whereas Cop Out was just like, man, fuck this shit.
Yeah, I gotta get out of here.
I'm gonna do the movie and then get the fuck out. Very curious about Jersey Girl.
I've never seen that one, so
I actually remember Jersey Girl being not that bad. It was him trying to work with, again, he was doing something with J-Lo in it, with Batfleck. He was trying to do like a romantic comedy drama. And honestly, I remember it being pretty good for what it was. I think what it was that it felt like it was a waste of Kevin Smith. Does that make sense? Where it's like, this is so normal. Like, anybody could make a movie like this. He was just
trying stuff, but I see what you're saying. Also, I think that movie fell victim to the Benifer stuff.
J-Lo. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Like that.
No, I think
people loved to hate that couple. If you weren't alive back then or weren't old enough to remember, people loved to shit on Ben Affleck and J-Lo as a couple for whatever reason.
And like, I don't know how good of people either of them are.
Sure.
One of them is the brother of Casey Affleck, and I don't know. I don't want to do guilty by association, but like the point is that. I was gonna that video of him exasperated closing the door for her, and people are like, "Oh, they're fighting." It's like, no, you're filming them. This is why they broke up, right? Like, they have been under a microscope every fucking time they get together. Like, leave them alone. Again, I don't know if either of them are good people, bad people. I just know that people need to get the fuck away from them.
Sure,
like paparazzi.
Everybody deserves their privacy.
That's why every picture of Ben Affleck, is him looking exasperated and smoking a cigarette.
He's just trying to grab his donkeys, man.
Picture. Yeah. That's the thing. All those pictures, he's reacting to being photographed.
Yes.
That's it. And yeah, to piss anybody off.
I guess we're ending the episode on that note.
I guess. Well, no. Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
The point is, I'm excited about Jersey Girl because I don't think it's a bad movie. I think, it got lumped in with that Geely film, I think.
Yeah. Geely is a bad film.
Yeah.
It does.
I think are interchangeable in people's minds.
Not the fault of Affleck or J-Lo. That is a confounding movie.
I'm excited for you to watch Jersey Girl because there's some cameos in that
okay.
will be fun.
I know Carlin's in it.
Oh, yeah, he's a character.
He's Ben Affleck's dad, right, or something.
Yeah. Again, it's very interesting because he's trying to...
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, fuck, we're going to cover Zack and Miri at some point. That movie's a fucking fascinating movie.
I kind of love Zack and Miri.
I love Zack and Miri because it was Kevin Smith being like, there's this new era of comedy. I better do one.
Yeah.
Like, it's him being like, all right, let me grab one. And he does one. He's like Judd Apatow-style comedy that he nails.
Much tighter
reins
than Judd Apatow.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean is like he's like did it and he did it really well.
Yeah, he nailed it.
And then he's like, all right, see, I can do that too.
Now
okay,
I'm going to make horror movies for a couple of years.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun. I think we can be done here.
Sure, yeah, let's be done.
Thank you, at Nerd Numbers. Thank you so much.
Yes.
We've said it before. We both like Kevin Smith films, so it's been fun to revisit them.
This has been a
I haven't
fun show.
seen a lot of them. Yeah. I hadn't seen this movie in a minute,
Yeah, it had been a while. Well, actually, I had rewatched this one like a year ago, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
It had been a while. I think I rewatched it after we watched the reboot.
Oh, okay. Cool. This was through our Patreon, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. You can get custom podcasts on there.
Like
Did
this
you know
one.
this, Tom?
Like this
Yeah.
one.
You can also do custom We Just Watched, or for just $5 a month, you get a bunch of exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder's Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, Spiel Boys. You can watch movies with us every Friday night. That's a tier there. We have a whole Discord community. There's a lot of things on there. You should check it out.
Yeah, it's a good time. We also have a store you should check out. Head over to gamefullyunemployed.com. You can find a link to our Teespring store where we have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. So slap your silent peepers onto that.
Hell,
they traditionally don't talk like Silent Bob.
Wait, what?
Your eyes. Your peepers traditionally don't speak. Yeah.
Yeah, if your eyes are speaking, that's not normal.
Something's up. Yeah.
Yeah, don't do that.
Man.
Stop it.
Yeah, don't knock that off. Right now, it can't be good for you.
Yeah, get them out of there.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Noise, smoking weed, doing coke, drinking beers.